Hello and welcome to another Capture the Flag edition of Daryl Show Your Work, episode 91 to be exact. All right, so going on with the current using Hydra to brute force specific protocol theme I got going on here. In this episode, I'm going to be using Hydra to to brute force that the Samba protocol. I think the Windows version of SMB to capture a flag. But I'm not going to stop there. So there's going to be some other things I'm going to be doing in this video. But the first thing that I'm going to be doing is going after this flag again, targeting the Samba protocol, which is on port 445. However, before diving a little deeper into this, I want to preface this video with my usual disclaimer, and that anytime I do any sort of red teaming activities or offensive security tasks, that this is for ethical research and educational purposes only. Any sort of malicious actions that may directly or indirectly come from someone watching my video, I do not take responsibility for, nor do I condone. All right, so to get started, just to kind of give a high level overview of what Samba is, it's the Windows version of SMB, and basically what those protocols are, they allow for file and print sharing between computers, and in the specific instance of Windows, anything running on Windows computers. All right. So again, that's for print and file sharing. All right, and so I'm going to be using, in addition to using um, the Hydra application to do the brute forcing, I'm also going to use another tool called smbmap to do some enumeration once we're able to gain the credentials for our target. All right, and then also, if you remember my previous video, I mentioned how actually, if we were to know, let's say, part of the credentials, let's say if we knew the clear text username, where we could plug that into to Hydra as well, or vice versa with the password. So this time I'm also going to show how that's done and how that even further simplifies the brute force process, and how that minimizes the time that we wait for the return of those clear text credentials. All right, so to start off, let's find out who I am, or at least where I'm located. Say ifconfig. All right, let's move this over here so we can see. All right, so because I'm using I'm in a private network. I'm on Ethernet, the Ethernet 1 interface, and it looks like my IP address is 192.186.198.2. So let's copy that, and I'm gonna save it here on my mouse pad because I am going to be needing that. And so let's find out who else is up on my local within my local network, so I can find a target host here. So I'm gonna say fping -a -g, and then I'm gonna say 192.86 198, and then I'm gonna say 0/24, and that's, I'm giving the CIDR, so that's basically going to again ping every device that's within my local network, and it's going to see who's up and running, and then from there I can choose a target host. All right, so as usual, we see 3 hosts. 1 is more than likely the gateway, 2 is myself, so 3 is our lucky victim. All right, so let's just kind of change here what I've saved to my mouse pad here. So 3 is our target. I'm going to be using this address quite a bit here. All right. So now that we know who our target is, let's do some recon here with nmap, and let's see if those SMB related ports are open, which would be 445 and 139. So let's see if those are indeed open. So we're going to do a service scan of this. All right, so this shouldn't take very long. All right, so it looks like both 139 and 139 and 445 are both open. We can see that they're both running Samba, so that tells me that is indeed a Windows um, um, device that's being ran behind this IP address. All right, so I could continue my Samba specific enumeration here. So let's try to brute force our way in. So this time I'm gonna, because I know admin is a common username, let's see what happens if I were to try to brute force this with a known username admin and then just use a password list, a word list for the password to try to crack the password. All right. So everything works the way it's supposed to. It should cut down significantly on the amount of time that Hydra brute forces this protocol, this SMB protocol here. All right, so I said dash lowercase l and gave it the admin username. So I'm now saying dash uppercase P, and I'm gonna give it the location of the word list for what I'm going to use to do a dictionary attack to crack the password. Let's see, metasploit-framework, data, word lists, and then the name of this password list is Unix passwords. .txt. All right, so just checking my syntax here. Oh, let's not make the usual mistake. I am going to give it our target address, and then I need to tell it the protocol, which is SMB. All right, so let's check the syntax here. Admin is spelled correctly. Then see metasploit framework, data word list. All right, looks like I should be good to go. So let's see what happens when we have this known clear text username here, admin, and then we're just going to aim to just to crack the password. And another reason why this shouldn't take too long to run, because this time we're looking for the credentials of a specific account, so just one. So we're not looking for all vulnerable username and password combinations. All right. And bam, see, it took 1 second. All right, so it looks like we do have a match for an account name admin, and it has a password one. So that just shows ways that we could cut down on time. And so when we do things like dump that Etsy pass WD file, the contents of that, what it shows when we know what a username is, that may cut down on time when we're using an application such as Hydra to brute force a target, then it requires less action, less time for Hydra to look for username and password combinations. All right, so the next thing I'm going to use here is a smbmap, as far as trying to log in with these credentials and do some enumeration. And what smbmap is, it's a tool that it's going to allow me to enumerate Samba shared drives across the entire domain. All right, and we're gonna see exactly how that works. So I'm gonna first say SMB map. Then I'm gonna say dash capital H. And let's give it our target IP again. All right, and then I'm gonna say dash lowercase u and specify the username, which is admin, and then I'm gonna say dash lowercase p, and let's give it the password, which we know now is password one. All right, so what this is going to do, it's going to just display all the names of all the shares and the permissions associated with them. All right. So it looks like SMB map has started, and here we are. So these are all the share names, and then we see the permissions here on the right associated with the respective share name. All right. So again, if I'm an attacker, this gives me great insight as far as the read and write ability of each of these shares and who those shares are. As we can see, we have an admin share here. All right. So let's run some other commands now, since we've done some of those initial enumerations. So let's say if we want to see what the working group was along with some of these shares, what working group do these or work groups do these shares belong to? So instead of saying smbmap, this time I'm gonna say smbclient dash capital L, and then give it the our target IP again. This time I'm gonna capitalize that U and say admin, and then from here it should ask me for my password, and it does. So let's give it the password, which you know is password 1. All right, so we can see the work group that all of these belong to are Recon Labs. All right. So again, this gives me more information if I'm doing any sort of recon activity here. And let's run one more. And so the next one I'm going to run now. I'm actually going to log in and try to enter into the admin user interface. So I'm basically going to start an SMB session as the admin account. All right. So let's say SMB. Client, well, yeah, I'm gonna just type it out because this one is a bit different. All right, so backslash, and then let's give it the target IP. All right, and then another backslash, and then I'm gonna specify that I want to enter into the admin interface. All right, so I'm telling it where I want it to drop me off as, and I want it to do so by saying by using the admin account. So user dash capital U for user, and then admin, and then once I do this, it should ask me for my password again. All right, and there we are. So, all right, so you can see now that I'm in SMB. All right, so if we wanted to see a list different commands that we can run within SMB, within our SMB session, I could hit question mark, and that full list will come up. Some very basic commands. A lot of them look like very familiar Windows-based commands. For instance, we see cd here for change directory. Then we see dir here for directory, which will allow us to see the contents of whatever directory that we're presently in, or whichever one we specify. So let's see what what's in our current directory here. Let's do a dir command. All right, so we see there's a hidden directory here. All right, so now that we're in, remember this is a capture the flag session of show your work. All right, so I'm looking now for the flag. Now that I'm in our target host through SMB, now I'm searching through the different file directories to see if I can find this hidden flag. So this hidden directory that I found is very indicative that I'm close to where that flag is located. All right, so I'm gonna say cd hidden. All right, so we're gonna move up into the hidden folder. All right, and let's do a dir there. Let's see what's inside. And bam, we got a flag, but the flag, it looks like it's in a zip. So when you see any file name .tar.gz, that's a type of zip format, and we're going to have to unzip that. But first, before we can even try to unzip that, I'm going to download this into my local directory. So in order to do that, I'm going to say git flag .tar.gz, and that's going to download this file to my local directory. All right, so we can see here that that file appears to have transferred. So let's exit out of SMB and back to my local directory just to make sure that file is indeed there. So I'm gonna do a list command, All right, and then we can see that indeed that file is there. All right, so to unlock that file, all right, to unzip it, I'm gonna have to say tar dash x y z f and then specify the file name, which is tar.gz. Let's see, it didn't like something that I wrote here. Okay, let me see. Let me see, what didn't you like? Let's try this. I think I know what I did wrong. I think I put the wrong thing there. Okay, let's try xvzf. I think I may have gotten ahead of myself there. There we go. All right, that gets our unzip flag there, and let's do a cat to see what's inside of that flag. And all right, so there's the contents of our flag, and as usual, like I always say, flag is just symbolic for sensitive information. So that could be any sort of information as an attacker that I could exfiltrate, like I did in this example, exfiltrate and then view the contents of it. Or if I wanted to modify it, delete it, whatever. Once I have access to that file and I have the correct permissions to do so, I could do whatever I want to that file. So it shows why again having a strong password policy is important, because if I'm able to crack that password, and especially to an account like an admin account that has elevated privileges, I can get in and I have the right permissions to do whatever I want with the files that are on that machine through my protocol of choice that I have brute forced. All right, but as I promised, this is not where this video ends. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do some further enumeration with a tool called Enum4linux. All right, and so what Enum4linux is, it's a powerful command line tool used for enumerating information from Windows and Samba systems over the SMB protocol. So it's primarily used by pen testers, security auditors, and system administrators during the recon phase of a security assessment to identify potential vulnerabilities. All right, so I'm going to show how this works. So to get started, I'm going to say enum and literally the number 4. All right, and then Linux, all lowercase. All right, and let's say I'm going to say -a. I have to give it the target IP. All right, and so what this is going to do by this simple command, it's going to tell Enum4linux to enumerate all information on the target. That's going to be for the usernames, work groups, and their status, or whether or not they're up or not. All right, so let's run that and let's see what happens. All right, so let's go up a little bit. Sorry here, my machine's a little laggy. All right, so we can see it's returned back to us a list of other user accounts on this machine. All right, so again, going back to when I did the brute forcing, if I wanted to try to brute force any of these other accounts, now I have usernames to just plug in the Hydra and just let Hydra do its thing, and it probably will be successful, because if for the first admin account it had a weak password, knowing that there's probably a weak password policy and in place, more than likely the other passwords are going to probably be just as weak for these other accounts. All right, so and let's test that theory out. Okay, so this is just some other information here as far as the work groups and the status of we see active, different all these different work groups are currently active, and it's just telling you the different what the nature of them are. All right. So let's say I wanted to really know what the password policy is for this machine. So in order to do that, I'm going to run it. I'm actually going to run a credential scan this time, and that's going to be able to provide. That's going to enumerate even more details for me that this did, and amongst that should be the password policy. All right. So I'm gonna say dash u, and then I gotta give it a username, admin, and then dash p, and then so we know the password is password one. All right, then we have our target here. All right, so let's now run the credentialed um, scan of this, and let's see what happens. All right, and as you can see, it's running and it's still going. So when we ran the first time we ran this without uncredentialed against our target, you know, it finished within a matter of seconds. This thing is still going, and it's been about 10 to 15 seconds already, and it's still doing its enumeration. So it's giving us a lot more information. So I'm gonna scroll back up and let's see if we can see what the password policy is for this machine. Here we go. Password. Oh, went up too far. All right, hold on. Let's go back down because it was right in front of us. There we go. Just sliding up a little more. Okay, there we go. All right, stay still. No. Sorry, hold on. My machine here is a little laggy. Seems like it doesn't want to show the password information. All right, here we go. All right, so password policy for 192.86 198.3. All right. So let's scroll down a little more here. All right, so we can see the minimum password length is 5 characters, which that should be a lot longer. Password history length, there's none. All right, so basically a person um, um, can use a password that they've used, let's say within the last month. So if they change that password. Let's say they want to change it to something they already had before. It doesn't give a minimum amount of time, meaning that you can't, like for instance, if they set this for a password history length to like 90 days. So if they use their last password that they want to change back to, if they use that within the last 90 days, this allows them to do that. All right, so it's good to have some type of a password history length in here to basically, if a person has a familiar pattern of using the same password over and over and over again, setting this won't allow them to do that within a certain amount of specified days, weeks, or months, whatever you allow that to be. The longer, the better. And then as far as maximum password age, well, this account has had this password for the last 37 days, 6 hours, and 21 minutes. So, um, probably the best thing to do is set it at a maximum password age to maybe 30 days. So this person has had this password over a month. So it's probably good to maybe set something as strict as 30 days. So where a person has to change their password every 30 days, and it can't be something, let's say, within the last 90 days. All right, and it needs to be something a lot longer than 5 characters. All right, and then we don't even have a minimum password age set here. All right, so we can actually see here how horrible the password policy here is. We set account lockout counter. So basically, if let's say I would have brute forced this unsuccessfully a bunch of times, it would only lock me out for 30 minutes before I could try again. All right. And then there's no account lockout threshold. All right, and then forced log off time. Um, Again, it given given how this has been going for the same amount of time as the password age, it doesn't appear that that's set either. All right, so this, and then, okay, if we go further down, because I see even more interesting information. Password complexity disabled. So meaning there's nothing specific that says that, hey, you have to have at least one capital letter, you have to have a certain amount of lowercase letters, numbers, special characters. None of that sets here. That's all disabled. Okay, and then again we see that minimum password length is set to 5. So meaning that they can make it as small as 5 characters, and that's it. So if it's a 5 character dictionary word, then that means something like hydra probably guesses that in a matter of seconds, just like we just saw here when it gets the password as password 1. All right, so this is just an example of how Enum4linux can enumerate things and provide back to us as an ethical, at least as an ethical hacker, or IT specialist, um, how bad or how good a password policy is, and exactly what's going on with that password policy, given that we were able to crack a password for an admin account within a few seconds. Okay, so just so to give a high level overview of what was accomplished here. So I first started out finding my IP address so I could see who I am, and then doing a ping sweep of my local network to find out who my neighbors are, and choose a target host. Once I've made that choice, I perform a recon activity using nmap to see if port 445 or port 139 was open, since I was targeting the Samba protocol. We found those ports open, so then I next performed a brute force attack using Hydra, but this time already having an idea of what username I wanted to use, and just using one password list to crack for that single account, which I was able to do in a matter of seconds. All right, so once we had both those that username and that password, I used the smbmap tool to do some enumeration of the target as far as learning what those shared names are, what their permissions are. All right, and then once I did that, then I used smbclient to actually log in as an admin user, and then searched around within the local directory of that machine, and we found the flag. All right, so after I found the flag, I wanted to show how we can use another tool to conduct enumeration once we had those credentials that we found when brute forcing. All right, so we used the Enum4linux tool, all right, to do some initial enumeration. We found some other user accounts present on the machine, and then when I did a credentialed scan of the machine using Enum4linux, then we were able to see the password policy and just how sorry it was. All right. So again, the main takeaway from this is it doesn't matter how secure your protocol is. If you have a weak authentication policy or a weak password policy, then it doesn't matter how much security that you have in place, or how secure that actual protocol is, it can be thwarted. All right, and in this case, it was thwarted within a matter of seconds, and I showed how much more information as an attacker that I could then enumerate from your machine once I had those credentials. So please like, share, and subscribe. Most importantly, show your work, and until next time, take care of yourself and God bless.